Well, good afternoon, David Hyner. It's a great pleasure and honour to have you to be able to interview you this afternoon. And you're somebody that I've known. We've known each other for probably in excess of 10 years, and you know, you are somebody that I have a great deal of admiration for, and I'm also very honoured to be in a mastermind group that's being facilitated by your good self this year, which is doing me no end of good. And so, yes. So, yeah, before we get started, would you like to just tell my audience a little bit about who you are and what you do in a few sentences, maybe?
Yeah, I'd be delighted to, and thank you for inviting me on. And the privilege is absolutely mine. It's lovely, always lovely to have a chat with a friend. I am a researcher and a professional speaker, and I give people the skills and the confidence to set and achieve massive goals, not realistic goals or smart objectives. In a nutshell, that's what I do.
Okay, so maybe you could just share with us how you actually got into doing that, because you used to run a catering business, didn't you?
Yeah, a lot of speakers make a deliberate choice to become a speaker. Mine's more by luck and happenstance. I don't even know if that's a word, but it is now. I had a catering business, an event management business in Birmingham, and we were very good at what we did, but I wasn't growing the business. And I was looking for something to blame. I hired a consultant. They told me I was the problem because I was a control freak and a micromanager and wouldn't delegate. And that kind of rang true. But I decided that I needed to learn how I could be more effective. And I was very fortunate, Graham, in that my customers were the who's who of the West Midlands. So I started asking them how they think and behave. And what they taught me was totally different to anything I'd learnt on a training course or read in a book. It was all really simple stuff, but stuff that was fairly contrary to what's traditionally taught. A bit like everyone's taught realistic goals. They all said, I set massive goals.
Yeah.
People say they manage stress. They say, I prevent it. There's tiny little differences, really subtle, but very powerful when they told me how they do it.
Yeah.
And after about 30 interviews, I realized there was this huge common thread in what they were telling me about goals. And I decided for the first time in my life to set a massive goal. And I decided to apply it to fundraising for charity, smashed it out the ballpark, raised a phenomenal, remarkable amount of money, breaking charity fundraising records. And at that point, I realized that other people need to hear this. It would actually be very self-serving and selfish of me just to keep it to myself. I could actually make a big difference to people. So I started to learn how to become a speaker by joining the Professional Speaking Association. And well, the rest is kind of history. I now have the privilege of having spoken over the last 20 years to just over 1 million people in 16 countries around the world. And I speak to everybody from students in high schools right up to chief executive peer groups and everything in between, corporate conferences, the whole shebang.
Brilliant. That's a really, that's a really inspiring story, because it just goes to show that anybody can do, whatever they want to do. I mean, the only thing that is in the way is ourselves. And I think, I've certainly been in my own way for quite a lot of my life. So, Dave, would you be able to tell us anything about a heart-shaped decision that you might have made in your life at some point?
Yeah, it's a very bizarre story.
Okay.
When I was a chef back in the day, I would say it was probably very early 1990s. There was a Friday night and Saturday where there was a deluge of snow. I'm talking between 2 and 4 feet of snow in places. It was like a freak weather occurrence. And it happened to be at the time where a church in Birmingham, St. Chad's Cathedral, had ordered 200 portions of really fine food from me for an event they were doing. And of course they phoned up early in the morning and says, look, no one's coming into Birmingham, we're going to have to cancel. I said, got all this food.
Mm.
They said, well, what can we do? And I said, well, is there anyone we can give it to? And they said, well, just around the corner from us, there's the Salvation Army. They would snap your hands off for it.
Mm.
And so me and my colleague, blissfully unaware of how bad the weather was in Birmingham, put all the food in the van and drove what was normally a 15-minute journey to the city centre. Took us 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And as we approached Birmingham, it was like an apocalyptic movie scene. The wind was howling in between all the skyscrapers. There was nobody around, and you couldn't see more than 30 feet due to the snow and the wind. And we got out the van, and I sent my friend in to just check we were in the right place. And I sat in the van, and out of the mist walked this bloke through the snow. I mean, it was nearly up to his waist. It was incredible. And he was wading through, and he had a beautiful lack of hair, like yourself, Graham, a beautiful lack of hair. And he had an open neck shirt, a jacket with no buttons he was holding together with one hand, and he was holding the bottom of his trousers as best as he could out of the massive snowdrift with his other hand, and literally shuffling. And it was obvious to me he was going towards the Salvation Army.
Mm.
And I was sitting in a nice warm van, toasty, and I thought, got to help him. So I jumped out the van, waded through the storm towards him, and I said, can I help you, mate? And he stopped, and he looked at me square in the eye. And I don't wish to over-egg the pudding, but there was literally an icicle of content hanging off his nostril.
Oh, my word.
He wasn't blue. He was white with cold.
Wow.
And he looked at me and went, I've walked 1.5 miles across town in this. Do you think I need help for the last 30 yards? And he just walked on. And he just left me standing in the snow. But I followed him into the Salvation Army. And I'm ashamed to say I was quite a hard person back then. Not hard nasty, just very, it's all about me.
Mm.
And the next half an hour in that Salvation Army, meeting some of the people that I met, fundamentally changed me. And I then went on a bit of a mission to raise money for charity, and now our purpose in professional speaking, me and my colleagues, it's not about seeking applause, it's about making a difference. And it all, I think it all started in that moment when I realized that, you know, we can, all of us have problems, but we never know what's really going on until we actually meet people with real problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would totally agree with that. I mean, somebody got me involved in volunteering to help homeless people in London about 7 or 8 years ago, and I've done work a lot. I've tried to find time and opportunity to do work like that ever since, and it's been some of the most rewarding work that I've ever done. Is actually the work I haven't been paid for, which is something that I think everybody needs to look out for opportunities to do things like that. Yeah, thanks very much for sharing that with us, Dave. And should anybody want to get in contact with you to get you to come and speak at an event or speak to you, how would they? What's the best way to do that?
My surname is spelled Hyner, and if they put my name, David Hyner, into Google, I'm over it like a rash. So I've got davidhyner.com is my website. I'm on LinkedIn. If they want some video courses, I'm on Udemy, udemy.com. Just put my name in, you'll find me. And if I can serve people in any way, please do not hesitate to ask.
Thank you very much, Dave, for talking to me. It's been a pleasure and a privilege, and have a wonderful rest of 2020.
God bless you, Graham. Lovely chatting to you, mate.
Thank you. Cheers. Brilliant.